To say that Pokemon Go is a worldwide phenomenon seems like it's an understatement at this point, and its inception was something that we have been waiting for since we were kids, having the ability to capture any Pokemon that we want to, anywhere that we want to, be able to trade with friends and communicate with people across the globe. It seems like it's just a natural fit at this point for a Pokemon game to be available on the go, but especially on your mobile device, a device that everyone has that implements real-world functionalities that forces you to explore new locations and even places around your local area that you've never been to before. And I've really liked that concept for all this time, but I've had a bit of a love-hate relationship with Pokemon Go because of what it means for the mainline games and the future of those mainline games. And no, this video is not a rant about Pokemon Go, it's not a rant about the main games, it's just me trying to figure out exactly how I feel about Pokemon Go and where it fits in with the entirety of the Pokemon franchise. My name is Brian Saviano, aka BricksOBrian, and I'm bringing you another one of these fancy schmancy videos, trying to decipher how I feel about a game or a topic or something, because Pokemon Go has recently come back into my life, and I can't really figure out why quite yet. So Pokemon Go changed the world when it first came out in 2016. It got people hooked, like in a way that nothing else has gotten people hooked in the world of video games before. Whether you were young, old, not into Pokemon at all, or a lapsed fan, you saw people wandering through parking lots and empty parks, the forest, anywhere, looking for these mystical creatures, the original 151, the ones that everyone knows and loves. And the fact that you could turn on your camera and actually capture Pokemon in your real-life environment, that is amazing, and seeing that art style clash with the real-world aspect of it is something that we've all envisioned for like 20 years. So to see that actually come to fruition now in the power of your mobile device is amazing. The popularity of mobile gaming and the Generation 1 nostalgia made this an absolute hurricane of money that was going to be approaching Niantic and the Pokemon Company. So you would think me, as a diehard fan, I would be totally interested in this game from the get-go and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars in microtransactions and invest in this game up until right now, right? Not really. I've actually had an on-off relationship with Pokemon Go through the years. And the concept of Pokemon Go is fantastic. You're getting right to the chase of what people love about Pokemon is catching them all, which is why it's the catchphrase of the franchise, or at least it was for a little while. Kinda not so much now with the Sword and Shield stuff, but that's beside the point. Catching Pokemon is easy and incredibly interactive, just a twirl of your finger and bam, you caught yourself a Rattata, a Chansey, even a Mewtwo and other legendary Pokemon with a swipe of a finger. It's not rocket science to capture the Pokemon, and when it first came out, that's all you could really do. You couldn't trade, you couldn't battle each other, you could raid other Pokemon in a gym that's located out in the wide open areas, but you couldn't battle each other or anything like that, so the interactivity aspect of it was really, really low. Nowadays, not so much. You can do all sorts of stuff like trading and battling, but it requires a lot of Stardust and they gotta be near you, so there's no international battling happening right now, but at least you can battle with friends locally. And because you're going out to these areas with your friends, that makes for incredible memories, because you discover new areas of your city that you never did before, and you can even meet new people while you're out there, because you can see all the sweaty nerds looking down at their phone and think, well, they must be playing Pokemon Go, especially if it's a beautiful day outside and you notice a Charizard out in the wild. You just see a drove of neckbeards going toward one location. Oh, you know exactly what they're doing. I remember the moment where I knew Pokemon Go was a thing, because I was in a Wegmans parking lot and I was about to go inside to get myself some nice food, and I noticed this girl was walking around aimlessly in a parking lot, looking at her phone and looking up, looking down and looking back up, and wandering around the parking lot. I'm like, what is she doing? Why can she not find her car? She's not looking at her key. She's looking for a Pokemon. Interesting. How? This is going way beyond anything that I had ever expected. And you were seeing so many different types of people out of the woodwork, people that you would never expect to pick up a Pokemon game ever or ever again, and they were playing it as if they were fans throughout the whole entire existence of the franchise. It didn't matter whether you were in it for the very beginning or you were just trying to go with the trend of it all. It got everyone playing, and Pokemon being the #1 franchise in the world, it just hit in a specific way. Even parents who weren't into Pokemon, maybe their kids were, but they saw these cute little creatures on their phone, you could just swipe and catch them, and it's a little instant gratification, a certain type of satisfaction when that happens. And that's what got people really hooked. And it wasn't unfair with microtransactions or anything like that. It was pretty lenient. You know, you could buy Pokeballs, but you could easily get more of them just by walking around your town and swiping all the Pokestops, and you get regenerated with stuff pretty easily. So for me, as someone who has been a fan of the franchise since I was born in 1996, it didn't feel at first like an authentic Pokemon game, because it wasn't developed by a Pokemon developer. It didn't have any connectivity with the games at that point. It felt like a secondhand experience. It didn't feel authentic to Pokemon because you couldn't battle other trainers. There was no real story. There wasn't any of the mainstays of the Pokemon franchise. It was this entirely unique experience, and it really is that today. Even with Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, that implements a lot of the catching mechanics of the Pokemon Go game, it still doesn't feel like any other game in the franchise. And I don't know about you, but when I catch Pokemon in the main games, I'm catching them because I want that Pokemon on my team, or I want it for my Pokedex. And Pokemon Go entirely changed that philosophy, in my opinion, for the worse. Because the idea of you catching a Rattata over and over and over again, and then taking all of those Rattata and sending them away to a meat grinder to get candy out of them, to enhance that Rattata, to evolve it into a Raticate, and then further level up that Raticate, that's a visual that I just never wanted to see. I don't want to see these Pokemon sent away to a meat grinder to enhance one of them. That's not what Pokemon is about. It's about catching one Pokemon and working with it and building a bond with it throughout your entire journey. That way you can beat the Elite Four. Now, obviously, these are digital creatures in your pocket, and you're not going to form an emotional connection to them like they're fictitious creatures, but still, that's the philosophy of Pokemon, and Pokemon Go seems to go against that entirely. And I don't know, catching multiple of things makes it feel less special. I mean, you can get a Chansey, which is a very powerful Pokemon to use in the actual mainline games, and even in Pokemon Go as well. Very tank-like Pokemon, but then to really level up that Pokemon, you gotta catch like 100 of them to then use Stardust, a different type of currency that has never existed in the games before or after, to then level it up even more. It just doesn't seem cohesive with anything else that Pokemon is. Now, sure, they could add that into Pokemon Sword and Shield. They already did it a little bit in Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Pikachu, but it wasn't to the extent that people are invested in it with Pokemon Go. And something that I thought might have been a problem and actually became a reality with Pokemon Go and Pokemon Let's Go is when you transfer a Pokemon into the game from Pokemon Go into Let's Go, the CP, the way that you measure a Pokemon's combat power, it doesn't necessarily translate well into Let's Go. So when I had a 2,300 CP Gyarados and I tossed that into Let's Go Pikachu, that ended up resulting in a level 24 Gyarados. Now, I may be in the wrong right here, but I think a 2400 CP Gyarados can kind of hold its own in a Pokemon gym, you know? It's not weak by any means. It's a fairly decent Pokemon, but for then to it be a level 24 in the Let's Go games, it's like, wow, I thought it would be more of a level 40 at the very least, maybe a 50, but a level 24? I mean, I guess it translates in some way, but you would think with how powerful it actually is, it would be a higher level Pokemon, but it's really not. And just to kind of prove that point, when you look at a level 71 or the high 80s for levels in Pokemon Go, they are like 7,000 CP and 8,000 CP. Like, those are not numbers that you normally see in Pokemon Go from any Pokemon ever. It takes an incredibly high trainer level if you can even get to that level of CP with any Pokemon. So how is it so disproportionate between the main games that are sold on Nintendo Switch and the new, going forward, compared to Pokemon Go? It just doesn't make sense to me. And another aspect of the games that I don't know how I feel about is with shiny Pokemon. These incredibly elusive Pokemon that you basically have a 1 in 4,000 chance of it appearing in your game is seemingly devalued with things like Community Day in Pokemon Go, a day where a specific Pokemon, as deemed by Niantic or whoever, appears more frequently in the game, and the chances of a shiny go up tremendously as well. So basically, if you play the 3-hour time period that Community Day is actually active, typically from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. your time, then you're guaranteed to get at least one shiny variant of that Pokemon. Now, you still couldn't. It's totally determined by the computer. You have no control over it, but just because of how many things appear in the game, you're very likely to get a shiny. Traditionally in the games, as you can view by people trying to get shinies for hundreds and hundreds of hours, thousands of times of resetting the games and whatnot, it should never be that easy. These are Pokemon that, they don't change the stats at all. They're a different color, but people really go after them and they really try for them. And it's not every Pokemon that has a Community Day, obviously. There are some Pokemon that will never have a Community Day and will always be an elusive shiny, but from what I see online, it seems as though it's more common to come across a shiny Pokemon in the Go games and in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. As you may be able to tell by some of my reactions here, I've encountered shiny Pokemon without even really trying to. I didn't chain any Pokemon together. Yes, I had a shiny Charm on, but I didn't go through the typical means of getting a shiny Pokemon. I didn't spend hundreds of hours resetting for a specific legendary. I didn't go and chain together hundreds of Pokemon or anything like that. It just seems to happen more frequently, and maybe I'm just lucky and I should go play the lottery, but I don't know. And getting shinies a bit easier in these games isn't necessarily a bad thing. I just feel like it devalues the hard work, or rather tedious work, that people take to go and get these specific shiny Pokemon for hundreds of hours. I've never done that. I will never do that because I got other stuff to do in my life, but these people spend so much time doing that, and then, I can just randomly stumble across a shiny Cyndaquil in the wild in Pokemon Go, and all the work that someone spends to reset the very beginning of their Heart Gold or Soul Silver playthrough to get that shiny Cyndaquil, and I just got it randomly. I don't know. It doesn't seem fair. Maybe it has to do with the instant gratification aspect of getting a shiny and wanting to keep people hooked in more. So maybe a shiny appears a slightly bit more often, be like, oh, cool, I finally got this thing. I should keep playing and spend more money. That might have something to do with it, but I really don't know. And in all fairness, Pokemon Go makes completing the Pokédex that much easier because you have all of these different generations in one game, and obviously some Pokemon are going to appear at certain times over other ones. Not every single Pokemon of the 500 available at the time of this recording are available, but that's more than any one game that's out right now. You can't get all of the Pokemon in one experience except for in Pokemon Go, and you can then transfer all those Pokemon into Pokemon Home. So if you're looking to get a living dex of Pokemon, what a fantastic way to do that than right there. And yeah, you have to spend a little bit of money with coins to expand your Pokemon storage, but you can expand that up to 1,800 slots, which is way more than you'll ever need if you want to get one of everything. So that works out pretty well. And the real life aspect of it, it forces you to get out. It forces you to be more active. Okay, get off your lazy bum. Go explore your local city, your town, wherever you want to go, just go explore there. There's probably some historical stuff somewhere around you. I'm in the North Shore of Boston. There's something historical every 15 feet around here. And I mean, walking around Salem, Massachusetts, Boston, and really anywhere, it's amazing to see the architecture of the buildings and the atmosphere and just be outside while still playing a video game. So I can say, oh, I'm on the clock, I'm working as I'm playing Pokemon Go and taking in all the sights. And now that I think about it, people who play Pokemon Go seem to not care about the main games at all. I don't know if any of you have experienced that at all, but when I talk to my friends who play Pokemon Go and I say, well, in all technicality, this Gyarados is technically a level 24 and it's really weak, they don't care because they're always within the Pokemon Go ecosystem. They're never going to take those Pokemon and play with them competitively. They're not going for a complete Pokedex because typically they're more fair weather fans, or not as hardcore at least as I am, so they don't care about transferring them and making sure that their Pokedex is complete. They have their 2700 Ursaring and they're totally good by that. Even if that means it's a level 30 Pokemon in all actuality with the main games, that doesn't matter. They can still compete against local gyms in their areas and have a good time with it regardless. So from that aspect, I totally understand it. I take those Pokemon from Let's Go, Pokemon Bank, and I'm going to aggregate it all into Pokemon Home. That way I have a complete collection one day of every single Pokemon. So it really just depends on what you're getting out of it, and I've been falling out of Pokemon Go and coming back in because, well, firstly, recently, I heard there was a Turtwig community day where I could get a shiny Turtwig incredibly easily. Yes, please, thank you, because otherwise getting a shiny Turtwig involves restarting the very beginning of Pokemon Diamond, Pearl, or Platinum, potentially hundreds and hundreds of times, and I do not want to do that. And I ended up catching quite a few of them, so I'm pretty proud of myself there. The first half hour, 45 minutes or so, I didn't catch any. I was getting very discouraged, but by the end of it, I got 8 shiny Turtwig. Now, there's nobody on this planet who'd have the patience to get 8 shiny Turtwig legitimately, because that would be, I don't even want to think about how much time that would actually be. And really, that's what it comes down to. Everyone can have their own type of fun, and I can't ridicule someone for caring about these low-level Pokemon in all actuality. They're still having fun with it, and I can gather up all the Pokemon I want to get my complete living dex eventually. I'm just really trying to catch them all, trying to stay true to the Pokemon lingo, the catchphrase. And what I actually really want is a shiny Piplup of my own, even though I don't think it looks that great, but then once I get that, I'll retire from Pokemon forever because nothing else really matters. It's a shiny Piplup, alright? So with them constantly adding new Pokemon in the raids so we can get legendary Pokemon more easily, more legendary Pokemon through the research requirements, it makes it easier to get like a Mew, Jirachi, Celebi, Deoxys, so much easier than it ever has been before. And as long as Pokemon Go keeps doing things like that, they'll keep me coming back at least until I get one of everything. I hope you enjoyed this video, and by any means of the internet, let me know how you feel about Pokemon Go. Do you go outside and actually explore places? Do you actually interact with other human beings while playing Pokemon Go? I typically don't. I let all my friends do the talking and I jump into conversation afterward because they're very loud. I'm more reserved, as the video may contradict what you may think of me in that way, but yeah, I sit back. I let them do all the talking during the community days while walking around Boston Common. Bit easier for me. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic day. Enjoy Pokemon Sword, Shield, and Pokemon Go, and I'll talk to you lovely people of the internet for the next fancy schmancy video very soon. Peace out. Bye.